everybody, today's video is going to be a little bit different. This one is entirely personal, but today I am 8 years sober from alcohol. When I started this YouTube channel, I was unemployed due to my struggles with alcohol and in an intensive outpatient addiction treatment program. Really, this YouTube channel was birthed out of the darkest time in my life, and I was using this YouTube channel as an escape from the hopelessness I was feeling in everyday life, where I could not imagine my life being better. I couldn't imagine things improving from the pain that I'd caused for myself and the people all around me. And within a few years, after a lot of work on myself, a lot of work rebuilding trust with my family, a lot of work on this YouTube channel, I was able to turn my hobby that was meant as an escape from the pain of life into a full-time dream job. And over the last 5 years that I've been full-time on YouTube, it's provided some just incredible opportunities where I'm meeting people and speaking at Comic-Con, speaking at leadership conferences. I'm regularly on the news in Bakersfield, California. And just the simple fact that I have an audience that cares what I have to say about things still kind of blows my mind. And I can't believe that this is my life. That what I used to do for fun and for free is now how I make my living. And there's so many other cool perks that come along with it. And so just right off the bat, I want to say thank you for watching, commenting, liking, subscribing, paying any attention to me. Thank you so much for just helping this to happen. Second, thank you for being a part of my recovery journey. Just the simple fact that I have an audience and something to work towards was so crucial in helping me to move out of a hopeless state. But really, the reason that I wanted to make this video is that I know just how stuck I felt in my struggles, where I didn't seek the help that I needed out of fear of all of the ramifications. Fear of losing my reputation, fear of losing my job, and the belief that if I came clean, if I went public, my life would be over. I believed that. And because of that, I lived with everything in secret, bottling it up, which only amplified all of the consequences of my struggles, of my addiction. And I just spiraled more and more and more out of control because of it. But the reality is, I couldn't really even live my life until I came clean. I couldn't be the husband I needed to be. I couldn't be the father I needed to be. I couldn't be happy in the work that I was doing because I was so shackled by my addiction, trapped in the lies that I was telling everyone around me, that it just made me miserable. And the only way to really live was to come clean and stop living in fear. And I don't know your story, but I know without question some of you watching are stuck in your own destructive cycle. Maybe it's alcohol, like as was my story. Maybe it's something completely different. But I know some of you are struggling, and I want to share my story to give you hope, because I know how hopeless I felt in the middle of it all. And I wish I'd heard more stories of people that were able to break through and get clean. I've shared my story before on this channel, probably every year I share my story and always say I'm going to do it short, and it's never actually short, but I shared it at some leadership conferences and other versions of this video. So if you want kind of a more intense version of this, I'll try to remember to post links on here. But in short, I grew up with an alcoholic father that every night he'd come home and just get drunk out of his mind. There was some physical abuse in the spectrum of things. It was very minor compared to what many of you probably faced, but there were some things that as a grown-up I realized would fall into the category of physical abuse. And so for me, alcohol was always a toxic, dangerous thing that I only saw someone drinking and being totally out of control. So I never dabbled in alcohol as a teenager. In fact, my dad drank himself to death when I was 20, and still up to that point in time, I'd never drank any alcohol to any significant degree. When I was 21, a close friend of mine, his brother was in an accident. It might have been a suicide attempt and was basically put in a medically induced coma for several days to try and get him healthy again. And that night that this incident occurred, my friend showed up at my house with some alcohol and he wanted me to drink with him. Because of my family history, because of everything with my dad, because of my knowledge of myself, I've always knew you shouldn't start drinking. You're like an all-in kind of person. This will probably go bad for you. And you don't want to go down the path. Your dad, don't do it. Always knew that. But my friend comes over and his brother's in a medically induced coma. This is a dire day. If ever there was a good reason to drink, this was it. If ever there was a safe context for me to drink, this was it. And that belief, the day was bad enough, it's okay because it's been a bad day. Like that thought, that lie in my mind wreaked havoc on my life a few years later. But it was a simple little thought that got in my head that this is okay because things have been bad enough. I knew myself. I knew my family history. I'm not making a statement about what you should do. Certainly not making a broad statement about alcohol in general. But for me personally, I knew I shouldn't head down that path. But because it was a bad day, I thought it was okay. And over the next few years, still didn't drink hardly ever. Maybe at a funeral, something bad happens. Just every 6 months, every 3 months, drink a little bit. Jump forward a few years, went to Bible college and ended up getting hired as a church as the associate pastor over youth ministry, communication, backup preacher, bunch of different things. And when you work in church world, you know everyone, you care about everyone, you love everyone, and you know all of the pain that everyone is facing. And because of that, I started to carry those burdens on my shoulders, and there's a lot of bad days. There's a lot of days when something awful happens to someone you care deeply about. So then I started drinking once a month, once a week, couple times a week, and it was like right on the edge of what was wise for me. And in December 2012, started about a 6-month window of time where there was multiple teenage suicides in the community that really kind of shook things, including someone that was one of my own students at my church. There was like a person in the church band just died in a car accident, just stressful incidents, like true tragedies. And because I'd been living right on the line of wisdom, already doing stuff it was unwise for me to do, but on the edge of like losing control, when this window of time hit, I just very quickly spiraled out of control from I need an excuse to drink, and there's a lot of excuses, and I'm looking for excuses to I cannot stop drinking. I have to, just drawn, and the addiction took over very quickly. And a second lie kind of came into my mind of if you come clean, your life will be over. And I believe that. Like I worked at a church. When you're a pastor, your reputation is so much tied to your job and all these different things to it. And while in church world, we know everyone's a sinner, but you still kind of think of pastors differently. And for some of that's for good reason. If I come clean, my life will be over. I'll lose my job. I won't be able to support my family. And that fear took over. And that lie, if you come clean, your life will be over, it will be hopeless, caused me to try and fix myself for 3.5 years. And like in secret, just trying through willpower stop, and it never worked. And just kept spiraling and more lies and just more misery. And the worst part about this is that this window of time when I was in the depths of alcoholism was when Liam was very young, when Chloe was born. And those years were just essentially lost to alcohol for me. And it just, for multiple years, miserable. So in June 2016, I kind of reached that point where I was just fed up with the lies, the pain, the misery. And I was spiraling out of control to the point that people were noticing. Like, people were catching on that something was very wrong with me. And, someone even confronted me and, I lied about it. But it was like, I reached that point in time of like, Like, I hate this life that I'm in. Like, I just feel trapped in my own life. And I can't do this anymore. And so I came clean. I wrote a letter to the leadership at the church, kind of confessing everything, told wife and everything like that, essentially resigned from the church. And when I care more about being healthy than looking healthy. And I know a lot of people have horror stories about being kicked out of the church when there's moral failings, in particular when someone in leadership has a moral failing, they get kicked out of the church. There's a lot of those stories. That's not my story. 8 years later, I'm at the same church. This spring, I taught the adult Bible study class. Next week, actually 2 different weeks in this month of June, I'll be driving teenagers for week-long events. And so I know there's many churches out there that don't understand grace. There's also a lot of churches out there that do understand grace and forgiveness, and that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and that the role of the church is to be a hospital for sinners, not a fort for saints that have it perfect and all together. And staying there has been difficult. There's been all sorts of mistakes on both sides, but that's life. That's what it's supposed to be, is working together with people that love each other. And I luckily have been in a community for 15 years that I know loves and cares for me and my family, and I love the community that I'm in. But, and then they supported our family through the covering costs for the recovery program and helping, and supporting us until I was able to get a job, everything like that. But what's meant was, a few weeks later, I started an intensive alcohol treatment program. That was like 3 months long, like 3-hour sessions at nighttime. I wasn't on site all day long. I didn't live there or anything like that, but I was there every day for 3 hours. So it was a lot. And in the middle of that, also went on a date night to go see Ghostbusters 2016. And the next day, in the middle of this time where I didn't have a job and life was hard and confusing, I just went, what if I shared my thoughts on YouTube? And Sean Chandler Talks About was born. Right in when it was still raw, everything going on with my alcoholism. Like, I had no clue what my life was going to be. I don't think I'd even started submitting resumes to get a new job yet. But I started this YouTube channel. It's just an escape. And while the story eventually had a happy ending that turned into this dream career, it was 2 incredibly hard years. And I don't want to present any of this as, oh, it was easy. Yeah, it was super easy to come. No, it was brutal. My entire adult resume was in church world. And so it's not particularly easy for that to translate to regular jobs, understanding what value I'd have to offer. So even though I graduated from college magna cum laude with high honors and had done all of these things in leadership, public speaking, communication, didn't really translate into business world resume. So ironically, the only job I could get was as a paint delivery driver because I could pass a drug test. It was incredibly humbling. And it meant that for 2.5 years, I was working 40 hours per week where I carried heavy buckets of paint. I'd go home, I'd play with my kids for a couple hours, and then I'd shoot and edit a video, go to bed, and then for 8 hours, I'd carry paint the next day. It was tough. And it changed my life. And eventually the channel gained traction. Some videos took off. And my little escape from the pain turned into a dream career. And it was all birthed out of just tremendous amount of pain. So people frequently ask me, like, what was my secret to getting clean? And I don't know that there's a secret. There's not like this cool little simple life hack that I can give you that'll just solve your problems. All I can do is tell you my story. I'm a Christian. I'm a person of faith, and my belief in Jesus and his death, resurrection on the cross, that is core to my belief system and what I think leads to life transformation. So that's the only story I can really tell you, and it's my grace story. From 2013 to 2016, I tried to fix myself through willpower and attending AAA meetings, and I failed miserably. It never stuck, and it always came back worse because I cared more about my reputation than getting clean. Pride drove my actions. I wanted to fix myself so that people would see me a specific way, not because I actually wanted to get healthy. And it says in James, God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. For 3 years, I tried to fix myself, which is pride. I can fix myself. That's all about me. And pride saying that I'm fixing myself because I don't want anyone else to know about it. I care what you think about me. That is all pride. And then in summer 2016, I finally humbled myself and publicly confessed what was going on. And like, that's difficult in any circumstance, to admit your failures, admit when you're really in the middle of something. But when you're a pastor working with teenagers, there's not really words to describe how painful it is, because your identity can be so tied to your occupation and your calling as a pastor. And that's all tied to your reputation, and you just tear it apart. And suddenly everyone sees you and interacts with you differently. There's not really words for it. So I went to the leadership of my church, and basically I gave them permission to guide my recovery. Whatever they said I needed, I would do. I surrendered. Whatever my wife said she wanted me to do, I would do it. Because it wasn't about me fixing myself, what I can do. It was about submitting to others that loved me, loved Jesus, cared for me. It was painful. It was difficult. But my goal was to be healthy, not to look healthy. My goal was to get right with God, with the people around me, with my community. And that meant surrender and stop trying to do it myself. And people ask me, do you have any tips? And I really don't think that little tips, hacks are what changes things. Your external behavior requires an internal change. That's at the core of what happens, and that requires humility, the really hard stuff to do. There were some little things, like I didn't carry money for months after coming clean. It's just like a simple behavioral thing that just made it so there was dramatically more steps I would have to go through just to be able to buy alcohol. So it just kind of removed a temptation to put more steps between I have an urge to do something and being able to act on that urge. There's some validity to yes, make it as difficult to get access to the thing you're struggling with. But once again, that's more important than superficially cutting off access is transformation on the inside. That's where change takes place. From the inside out, not outside in. And to just reiterate this as much as possible, there was nothing easy about getting sober. I went from being a miserable person who failed at my most important roles at life, a slave to alcohol, to living a dream job. But the process in the middle was hard, and I had to endure it. But you understand, there is hope. Prior to my struggles, one of my favorite Bible verses was Ephesians 3:20 says, "Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us." And when I look back on the last 8 years of my life, that verse has such a radically different meaning to me, because my recovery only makes sense to me if it was by God's grace. When I tried to fix myself, I failed. When I humbled myself and let his grace work, suddenly transformation occurred. But it wasn't just that I stopped the incredibly destructive behavior. He's given me a life that I could not have imagined, that only makes sense if he was the one orchestrating things. And as I said throughout this, one of the reasons I was stuck in the lies and stuck in my addiction is because it would just looked hopeless to me. I couldn't imagine life being better. To him who is able to do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine. That's my grace story, that I was stuck in, to use a churchy word, my sin, my addiction, my struggles. And when I humbled myself, submitted myself to him, suddenly I'm freed from my struggle and given something I could not even imagine, where life is so much better and happier. And even just having this YouTube channel, I'm able to share my story, and thousands of people have heard my grace story, my story of being stuck in addiction and coming clean. They've heard that because of this YouTube channel. It's just a piece of one more area where, God's been able to use me, hopefully to help some people and inspire some people in their own struggles. If you're struggling, there is hope. If you're afraid that your life will be over if you come clean, most likely your struggle is holding you back from really living at all, because you're just so consumed with this thing that has a hold on your life and the lies that you have to tell the people around you to keep it a secret, or whatever that looks like for you. You're not really living if you're in the middle of addiction. You have to break free from that to truly start to live. I know how hard it is to come clean, to admit your struggles. I get it. But absolute surrender and humility is where transformation comes from. Trusting other people to guide you and help you on your journey. And when I did that, my life changed exclusively for the better on dramatic levels to which I could not have imagined that all of this would be possible. That I would be interviewing directors, seeing movies early, having hundreds of thousands of fans. I could not have imagined any of that. And it all came about because of surrender. But most importantly in all of this, I'm able to be a good husband, father, just a good man in general because of the transformation, and I'm not controlled by my addiction. Thank you so much for being a part of my recovery. Thank you so much for helping bring my dreams to life. I truly believe that God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. I truly believe that he's able to do immeasurably more than we could ask or imagine. And so, once, of course, thank you to God for all that he's done for me. And as always, keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.